My name is Tommy, and there was a time when Christmas was my favourite holiday. That was until my 7th Christmas. I still believed in Santa Claus at the time. Well, not just believed in him, I was obsessed with the idea of Santa. Most kids have that idea at least once in their lives that they should stay up all night and wait for Santa, but I very much doubt most kids have ever actually done it. But this was the year. This was the year that I decided I would wait up for Santa for real. It was Christmas Eve night, around a few hours after my extended family had left. I stayed up pretty late like I always did, watching TV in my room. I think it was around 11 p.m. when my dad came in to say goodnight to me. He always goes to bed rather early. My room was on the first floor of the house, and my parents' room was upstairs. I should mention here that we lived in quite a huge house, and you couldn't really hear anything going on across the house. A little while later, my mum came up to tell me to go to sleep, and then shut my door. Of course, I didn't go to sleep, though. Instead, I got up from my bed and began to write a note for Santa to read. I only planned on secretly observing Santa. I didn't really plan on speaking with him or anything like that. I feared that if he caught me, then he wouldn't give me any presents at all. On the note, I told him my love and appreciation for him and what I wanted for Christmas in the future. I planned on placing this directly above the fireplace just as soon as my mum would go to sleep, though. I grabbed some tape from my backpack and a small flashlight from my desk. I then opened my door, tiptoed down the landing, and peered into the living room, where I could see my mum placing presents under the tree. I tiptoed into the dining room and hid under the table, where I had a perfect view into the living room and the tree. This was the perfect spot to wait for Santa. After my mum had finished putting presents under the tree, she grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen, shut off the lights, and walked upstairs to her bedroom. I turned on my flashlight, got up from under the table, and ran into the living room, taping the note just above the fireplace. I got back under the dining room table, switched my flashlight back off, and waited in the dark. The small light coming from the digital clock in the living room provided barely enough light for me to see the tree and the fireplace. I waited and waited, but nothing happened. I felt myself starting to drift off when something brushed up against my leg. I shrieked and jerked back, turning around to see two large eyes staring back at me in the dark. It was just my pet cat, Jojo. I breathed a sigh of relief and shooed him off, for I thought he might blow my cover. I watched him run down into the den and out of sight. A little while later I heard my stomach growl, and I knew it was time for a midnight snack. I switched my flashlight back on, got out from under the table and walked to the kitchen, checking the time on the way. It was around 1:30 in the morning. I couldn't wait around any longer on an empty stomach. But just before I could open the fridge, I heard a sound coming from the den. I thought it was just Jojo at first, until I heard the sound of boots walking on the tiled floor. It was Santa. My heart nearly stopped from excitement as the footsteps neared closer to the steps. I quietly ran back to the dining room table to return to my hiding spot and turned off my flashlight once more. The footsteps began walking up the steps from the den into the living room. I could barely control my excitement. I was actually witnessing Santa in person. As the steps entered into the living room, I could see the Jolly Giant, a huge man dressed in a red coat and black boots, holding a sack as he stopped next to the tree. He just stood there for a few moments before walking up to the fireplace where he noticed my note. He ripped the note off the wall and began to read it. Then I heard Santa chuckle to himself and proceed to sit down on one of the couches. After a moment, he crouched down. I couldn't quite see what he was doing, but I heard him shuffling around with what sounded like a bag full of boxes. He finally stood back up and placed something under the tree. I had actually witnessed Santa leaving me a present. He then turned around, picked up his sack, and walked back down into the den until his footsteps faded away. I felt it safe to get up now, but I didn't want to open the present just yet, so I went straight back up to bed. I was satisfied. I got what I wanted. I fell asleep only seconds after climbing into bed, and morning came fast. I jumped out of bed, eager to get to the tree. The TV in the living room was on then, but nobody was in the room. Normally on Christmas morning, my parents were always there to greet me. Still, I immediately ran to find the present that Santa left me, and I found it. But it wasn't wrapped, it was just a simple box with a note sitting on top. I picked up the note. It was the note I had written, but it now had a small response from Santa. It read, "I'm flattered by your admiration, Tommy. I hope you like the gift I left you. Go ahead and open it now." My heart started pounding with excitement. Suddenly, I heard my parents yelling from the den. I quickly checked to see what was wrong and realized that the back door was cracked open, its window shattered, and in the background I remember hearing a news report about some kind of psychopath murderer spotted recently. With my 7-year-old maturity level though, I still found my top priority to be opening my presents. I rushed back to the tree, ripped off the lid of the box, and my heart sank to my stomach. There in the box, staring back up at me, was the head of my cat Jojo. I dropped the box in a daze. I couldn't even get a scream out of my mouth. The head fell out of the box, revealing another red-stained note at the bottom of the box, and I still, to this day, remember what it said. "I hope you like your present, Tommy. Oh, and by the way, I know you were hiding under the table. See you again soon, and remember, I see you when you're sleeping."